Okay, so my questions is there's a lot of things that don't make sense to me, yeah?
Okay, now we get into
within this is the reason why I don't say I'm a Christian. Because if I wouldn't be a follower of faith if I have to believe in what I'm following.
So what are those questions? This brother off camera talked to me and we had a brief discussion in which you described yourself as a seeker, and I invited you to talk to me on camera to ask whatever questions you like, and I'll do my best to give an appropriate answer. And the reason why I want it on camera is I suspect there might be other people that think similar to this brother who might have similar questions, and so it gives an opportunity to answer not just for you but maybe for other people as well. Okay, so yeah, just introduce yourself and ask away.
So essentially, the conversation that you just described was of what the first question was, what faith I am from. So as I said, I went to school in a Christian school. I have Christianity in my family, but I also have other religions, other denominations. So for me, as a human person that had this connection with God itself, which I've always felt from a very, very young age, but as I was given a narrative, from first my Christian school, where I wasn't able to, not necessarily challenge, but I suppose you could say on some occasions challenge, to question, to get more insight, to get more of an understanding of what this faith pertains. So for me, I wasn't able to get that in schools. I wasn't able to get that with the people that were around me, because a lot of people are followers of faith but not necessarily teachers of faith. So I may ask my father, he'll have his perception. I'll ask my friends and priests and whatever, and they will always have a different perception. So I always found that a bit of a disconnect for all, this all-encompassing truth, So this is where my issue lies, is that you may have this truth in Islam, you may have it where everyone, says that we have it over here, come over here and I'll tell you it. So as you said, I'm a seeker, but I understand because it's within me, and we all have it. We all.
It sounds to me that you are describing what the studies of religion. Because I studied religion at university.
Yeah. Same.
And
not in university.
So what you seem to be describing to me is what is known as the religion of the self, which is this idea that people have an innate connection to the truth. It lay within them, and it is something that you can connect to through your emotions. You have the authority for that truth is you.
Not so much, no.
So what is your? Because I invited you to ask me questions.
Yeah.
But what you've done is describe a position.
Well,
so that invites me now to ask questions of your position.
Absolutely fine.
So in terms of your position, do you believe that there's such a thing as objective truth?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if, for instance, a book had clear contradictions to history, like the Scientologists, they say that human beings came to Earth being carried by aliens, and that through the use of nuclear weapons, our souls were entrapped in these bodies, and that really we're thetans, and that the point of life is to escape the things that stop you from having a sort of Gnostic spiritual self out there. But that obviously contradicts everything that we can possibly know about astronomy, history, physics, and all the rest of it. So it would be fair to me to say that that is false, and that a belief system built on that is false. Would you agree with that?
To a degree. I mean, for me, the historical element that we use religion to be in line with the historical events, as that gives it more substantial truth. But to me, I find even in history, you know, as we say, some of the victors are the writers of our history, and you find a lot of gaps. We have dark ages, we have several dark ages, we have civilizations being completely broken down, where their books have been destroyed, and so they haven't got their chain of narration, they haven't got their chain, where it has been broken down, and their people have been broken down. So I find it tricky to use history well,
let's look at that. Like, in term, I mean, you've misunderstood and misused what the Dark Ages were. The Dark Ages is a Christian term referring to the time at the collapse of, the time that just after the collapse of Roman antiquity, in which Roman learning ceased. It doesn't mean that learning ceased. You know, the Visigoths and the Goths still had their own learning, but it wasn't Roman learning. But because the Christian church had grown up in the Roman Empire for 4 centuries, it had this sense of what a civilization was, that when it collapsed under these barbarian invasions, it named those barbarian invasions and the kingdoms that came after it the Dark Ages, okay? Which came to an end at things like the Carolingian Renaissance and so on. Now, in terms of our use of history, yes, history is written by the victors, and it has its blind spots. So, for example, you know, many people can talk about the great scientific men of history, but the knowledge of the scientific women of history is often understated, and so it has a blind spot created by a patriarchal society. However, that doesn't mean that the description of the scientific men is somehow false. So it still states a truth. So when we see claims about history, and we find evidence supporting certain claims over other claims, would you agree with me that it is fair to say that those claims that are supported by the evidence are true, and those claims that are contradicted by the evidence are false?
I wouldn't say as an absolute truth, but I would say it would outweigh the others' findings.
Okay. So I since you've not taken it upon yourself to ask any questions.
Well, I was going to say about the Dark Ages of Jesus Christ, for example.
Do you want to say or do you want to ask?
Well, I wanted to ask, well, it's a bit of both, really. So my understanding of the Dark Ages, it also, you know, as you corrected me, or I don't know if it was in the correction itself, because I just mentioned that Dark Ages of regardless to whether it's religious history or not, it's what you're saying. Anyway, Jesus' Dark Ages posed a lot of problems for me.
What do you mean by Jesus' Dark Ages?
Well, wasn't there a period of time, correct me if I'm wrong, was there not a period of time from Jesus going off into, some people are saying that he
so there was that bit of his life that isn't covered in the Gospels. Is not
documented.
That's absolutely true. But the thing that you've got to remember is, if you look at the biographies of Jesus that are written in the Gospels, and you compare them to the kinds of biographies that are written of other major characters in history of the same period, the format and the model of the biography is the same. Because biographies in the ancient world were not something like we might write a biography today, where you talk about each part of their life in equal chapters that covers systematically their beginning, the middle and the end. That's a modern way of writing.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the ancient world, you wrote about those things that were most important about the person. So in some of the histories about the Caesars, their biography is like a speech that they gave before a major battle. Why? Because that major battle was seen as the high point of their life. The biography of the Christ is about his passion and resurrection. If you look at the Gospel of Mark, it gives you half the chapters talking about Christ before the Passion, and then from about the midway section, it's all about him going up to Jerusalem. It's all about him being crucified and about the resurrection. So it talks about the importance part of his life.
But how do we know that that dark ages of Jesus Christ wasn't as important as the documented era?
Because
it wasn't documented equals that it's not important?
No, because what we have within the life of Christ is his ministry, which lasted about 3 years. Now that ministry was the fulfillment, his life was the fulfillment of Old Testament prophecies. There were Old Testament prophecies that were beyond Christ's ability to control. They were beyond his ability to control other people. That for them to be fulfilled, they had other people all to work together. Okay? And when you look at all these prophecies and see them stacking up, it points towards Jesus as being the fulfillment of prophecies that predate him by hundreds of years.
Right.
Now that means that if you have an historical account that is fulfilling prophecies that were written long before that historical account, and is then supported as history by other historical accounts, by other historians confirming that historical narrative that you find in the Gospels.
Some historians, yeah.
Yes, well, all the major ones of the time. Then what you have is you have a sort of miraculous evidence for the truth of the Christian faith, and a historical evidence for the truth of the Christian faith. So I'll give you an example of that if you want.
Please.
Yeah. So the fact that Christ was crucified on a cross, contradicts the Quran, for instance. Contradicts the Quran. The Quran says Christ was never crucified on a cross. But the Gospels, which are first century literature, written by the followers of Jesus, say that he was. And then later historians of antiquity, pagan and Jewish, as well as Christian, all confirm the narrative that Christ was crucified on a cross.
Right.
But that crucifixion is actually prophesied in the Psalms. It's actually prophesied in the book of Isaiah, literature that predates the actual events that are confirmed by later historians, confirmed by the Gospels.
Okay.
Yeah? So I'm going to show you.
Yeah.
Okay?
And do you believe in like Christophanies, in regards to like people like Melchizedek and...
Christophanies, theophanies.
Oh, is that
They're called theophanies.
Okay, I thought it was a Christophany.
Yeah, they're called theophanies.
Okay.
Just to be clear, your only evidence is the text, right? You make a big talk about evidence and really what can be objective, but then when it comes to actual evidence, you're referring to the text.
Yes, we're referring to the text. Yeah. So, in the book of Isaiah, which is written hundreds of years before Christ's life, in chapter 53, it speaks like this. Now, I'm not going to read everything. I just want to zoom in on a particular part. Okay? Right? So, this is a description of the Messiah. A man of sorrows and acquainted with grief, and like one from whom men hide their face. He was despised, and we did not esteem him. Surely our griefs he himself bore, and our sorrows he carried. Yet we ourselves esteemed him stricken, smitten of God and afflicted, but he was pierced through for our transgressions. Okay?
Yeah.
Right? Now, what happened on the cross?
Yeah. They pierced
him through.
Yeah, I understand that.
Okay? Now,
see where you... Yeah.
This was something that could not be in Christ's control. Okay? The Romans had many forms of execution. Christ could have died by the beating that he received. Yeah?
Absolutely.
They scourged him and whipped him, and that in itself had been known to kill people.
Yeah.
Okay? But he survived that, and they pierced him through, both with a lance and nails. Okay? That is all beyond his control. Now, in the Gospels, you know well that it talks about Christ being crucified. Okay? But there's also historians from antiquity that confirm the fact that Christ was crucified.
They were, sorry, who?
Historians.
Okay.
From So Josephus is a historian from antiquity. He's writing 37 to 120 AD, and in his book Antiquities, he states clearly that Christ was crucified under Pontius Pilate. Tacitus, writing in 55 AD to 117 AD, states clearly that Christ was crucified. Now, if on one hand, I put it to you, and this is a question to you directly.
Yeah.
Say we have claims and counterclaims. Some people say Christ wasn't crucified, and other people say that he was. If we have prophecies predating the crucifixion, and then we have historians confirming the crucifixion after the event, and then we have some people saying that the crucifixion never happened and some people saying that the crucifixion happened, which one of them is making a statement of truth?
Well, this is what I mean. It's the point of the word truth behind it. I would say the word is more accurate. Essentially, because you're saying it's truth, that means there's no falsity in it. The truth is this is absolute. You see what I mean?
Go on.
So this is the issue. That you can look at text, and essentially we look at text to support what we believe, don't we?
Yeah. In historical investigation.
In historical in most investigation, most people that investigate have an idea of what they're trying to get across.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, it's not that I'm disregarding what these texts say. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that there are lots of things that. Sorry. Forgive me. I have a business I run as well on Sundays. Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is that I understand where you're coming from, but for me, that's one element. That's to prove that Jesus was put on a cross. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then there's the next one, which would be that he was the Son of God, and that he he did this for our sins.
Yeah.
So then there's having to prove that.
Well, let's just stick with the crucifixion for the moment, because what we're trying to get to is what truth is.
Yeah. Well,
I would put it to you that truth is that narrative which most accurately corresponds to reality.
Yeah.
So it's that
we all have different realities.
No, but we don't. There are certain things that are subjective realities.
Yeah.
Like whether you like a cheeseburger or not. That's a subjective reality.
I get it.
Right?
But
It can't be argued with.
Reality?
Right, but an objective reality is the fact that we're all stood here in Hyde Park.
Absolutely.
That is an objective reality because it is a narrative that corresponds to the reality.
Yeah. But then in 1700 years' time, when they were trying to find out whether we did stand here,
they'd look at the videos.
But if in those times, this is the issue.
Exactly.
They'd
look at the documents. And what do all the documents say?
Yeah.
The documents before Christ's crucifixion prophesy that the Messiah would be crucified. The Gospels proclaim that he was crucified, and the historians of antiquity confirm that he was crucified. So all the evidence confirms that Christ was crucified.
But there are some historians that don't agree with that.
Such as?
Well, I can't name the historian to hand, but I've watched and
I only know. I personally, I can't remember his name either. But I personally only know of one credible historian who is a mythologist.
Okay.
And he is contradicted by virtually every other historian of antiquity. Bart Ehrman, who is a historian of the 1st century, says that it is an undeniable fact that Christ was crucified. Bruce Metzger, who was the teacher of Bart Ehrman and also a historian of the 1st century, says that Christ was crucified.
Right.
Even there's a Muslim historian called Sumat Haslan. He's got a name like he's from The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, but he's a Muslim historian, and he himself says someone who looked like Christ was crucified. So even Muslims historians who engage with the evidence are forced to deal with the fact that someone who was identified as Christ died on a cross. So why would you not accept that?
Because it's for a person to go through these, I have to go through the history. Yeah, I have to go through all the books and I have to read it, which I haven't as much as you have.
Fair enough. That's absolutely fine.
So that's another process that I have to go through. But in regards to historians, you know, that we look at, for example, there's the narrative of the history in religion and Christianity, because there are so many people involved in it, because it's a religious element, that's why there is more evidence supported, more presented. But then when you look at, for the history of, say, the pyramids or something, historians are constantly arguing with one another. It couldn't have taken this amount of time.
But no one, hold on one second.
Yeah.
They might be arguing about how the Egyptians built the pyramids, but no one's arguing that the Egyptians didn't build the pyramids.
Yeah, they are. There's lots of people.
No.
Graham Hancock, for example, people like that.
What's he saying? That the Egyptians did not build the pyramids?
He's saying that the Egyptians
Aliens
that
did
lived... No, this is what I'm trying to say. It's not necessarily just because we don't know who it is, it can't happen. It can't have happened. What I'm trying to say is that when you look at the evidence to weigh up when the pyramids happened, they said that the Egyptians obviously lived amongst the pyramids, and that
and their hieroglyphics are everywhere.
The hieroglyphics were everywhere,
And their practice of mummification is historically documented by the Egyptian culture, in the Egyptian culture.
Absolutely, but how do we not know that the Egyptians, while they were living there, they just used these tombs, to bury their kings in, because they also only found...
Does not the fact that but here, I want to try and cut to the chase.
No, I get it, but what I'm trying to say is,
I want to put it to you that you represent a phenomena that happens a lot in our society, and is probably even shared by many of the viewers of Content Over Everything and Soco Films. That there is this unwillingness to deal with objective truth because we have been brought up to doubt all truth claims in our society. There's a culture of radical skepticism that permeates our culture that makes a nonsense of historical or scientific or philosophical or rational inquiry. And what you're doing is you're replicating that sentiment now.
This is a rational inquiry. As a human being, not to just say, okay, so I went to a Christian school and my priest and my father told me Jesus Christ is the way and the light, and that's it, that's the end of it. So when we talk about Christ being love and feeling it in your soul, so everything that is exemplified by Jesus for me is love, but I don't see it in the Christians. They don't exemplify that type of love when I see them speak of Jesus. So this is, you can't look, we're all souls that we're trying to seek. Some people are not trying to seek. So let's not stamp on the people that are trying to seek just for the case of they're trying to seek, because you also went on that journey yourself.
For me it was a journey between Islam and Christianity, and I chose Christianity. Let me just
so I'm at that stage as well.
But what I'm saying to you, bro, what I'm saying to you, bro, is that and again, this is something that I encounter a lot. I mean, I don't know if you know, but I speak to lots of people, and very often lots of people reject Christianity because of some childhood experience. And you have referenced that childhood experience at least 2 or 3 times in your conversation with me.
Okay, that's where the journey started.
1 second. So it is because of a childhood experience that you have come to question the Christian faith. And what I'm saying to you is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But now you're a man, stop harping back to your childhood experience and deal with the evidence that is presented in front of you.
Okay, but I was just presenting the start of my journey.
Yeah, that's fine.
I haven't progressed into the different stages of where I am.
It's clearly formed your... It's clearly formed your emotional self, because what you're saying is that because as a child you were told things and you didn't find you were able always to argue against those things.
No, to question and to gain answers from.
Right, but what I notice and what everyone here will notice is the absence of questions. You've made a number of statements.
Well, I'm not having.
Yeah. But
what are the statements I've made?
So you've made a statement about what happened to you as a child. You made a statement about truth being something that is constructed by the victors.
And why did you want to...
You made a statement about there may be alternative histories. Mm-hmm. You made a statement, so a number of statements. I've not got a problem with you making statements. But what I'm saying is that when you make those statements, what you're defining is a position.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, because...
And that position invites me to interrogate that position.
That's fine.
And that's all I'm doing.
Yeah, it's fine.
You know?
But don't add all the other... Don't try to assign me to everyone else's ideologies, because this is the problem that I find. It's kind of, you're either with us or you're not with us. And this is not, for me, this is not a good open door. Come into my Christian home and let me engage with you.
But bro, honestly, with the utmost respect, I'm not here to stroke your ego.
No, I don't want my. That's not why I asked.
So, but my point is that the self, the religion of the self, you fit right into that paradigm. When you study it as an academic, everything that you're saying goes along with the religion of the self. And that is the culture that we have been taught in our society. This idea of questioning the traditional narratives, the idea of questioning traditional authority, the idea of placing authority within yourself and allowing yourself to be the arbiter of truth. There's a lot wrong with that. I'll give you an example of what is wrong with that. Because when you say to yourself that I am the arbiter of truth, you cut yourself off from objective truth.
Oh, so there's objective truth.
Well, 1 second, bro. I'm having a conversation with this guy. So I'm inviting you to engage with evidence. Okay.
So you've presented me one piece of evidence.
No. So
that you attain as an evidence.
So what is my argument?
What do you mean, what is your argument?
So I have presented you with an argument as to why what I've given you the delineation
that Jesus was prophesied.
I have given you the delineations of how we can understand things that are objective truth with a definition of what truth is. And then I've presented to you evidence that demonstrates that the Christian narrative corresponds with both history and prophecy.
So that's an objective truth.
So I'm inviting you to show me if I'm wrong in any way. Where
it's not about. This is what I mean. This is not a debate. I'm not here to come and debate you about where I stand. As you said, as you presented to me, that I'm a seeker. Yeah. So you are a person who believes they obtain the truth. Yeah.
I believe I stand within the truthful narrative of the Christian faith. Yeah.
Okay, so the Christian faith is the truth for you. Yeah. So that's fine. So to a person, it's not about stroking my ego. You know, I'm just another human being that you know. I've shown you my stages. I've shown you a very small element, and that's only because when we first spoke off camera, you asked me if I was a Christian as the first thing, and I said, well, no, I'm not a Christian per se. I've grown up into Christianity. I went to Christian schools. Okay, what is the question? Should be, why was my faith distracted, or why wasn't I?
But if you remember, the invitation of this was for you to ask the questions that you got hay fever.
No worries. Okay, so my questions are: there's a lot of things that don't make sense to me. Yeah.
Okay, now we get into
this is the reason why I don't say I'm a Christian. Because I wouldn't be a follower of faith if I have to believe in what I'm following.
So what are those questions?
There's so many. Look, in regards to firstly the church. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the church, they say, is the body of Christ. Body of Christ, and Jesus is the head of Christ.
Yeah,
is the head of the church.
He's the head of the church.
Yeah. So now, they're saying that you must put your. Sorry. Do you know what? I really got to answer these phone calls because it's my work and I'm right in the middle of something. I'm not trying to run away from it. I promise you. You saw me on the phone prior to it. But so what I'm saying is, for example, the church is and everyone within the hierarchy of the church are the representatives of the Christian faith. Yeah?
Go on.
So when we see things, for example, you're here and other Christians are here, and if in Islam, for example, the head of the mosque or the head of the Islamic faith and the clergy of their faith were involved in sexual abuse with boys and what have you, would you, yes or no, use that as you said before, I have some things that I'm going to use to throw at the Islam?
It would depend
would it be would it be something that you would use?
It would depend whether those things were being sanctioned by the Quran and the Hadiths.
Yeah.
So if the Muslims, because of suicide bombers, because suicide bombers in and of themselves, I think, are contradicting what Islam teaches.
Absolutely.
Islam doesn't teach about suicide, and it certainly doesn't teach suicide as a way of killing other people.
Right.
It does teach jihad, and it does teach violence. So I would criticize, based upon the actions of groups like ISIS in comparison to the actions of, say, the Ottoman Empire, and a triangulation to Quranic teaching. I would use that to criticize.
Right.
But to deal with your point directly, people that try to attack the Christian faith because of the predatory paedophile rings that have set themselves up in the institution of the church, are not criticizing the Christian faith, they're criticizing the failure of the Christian institution of the church.
Yeah.
That's not a criticism of my faith,
I'm not saying
because my faith doesn't justify paedophilia.
Yeah.
And therefore, it isn't a fair criticism from anyone to attack the Christian faith because of paedophile priests.
Right.
There are good people and bad people. There are people following Christ and people not following Christ. And the Bible itself says that there will be people who claim to follow Christ, but Christ will say to them, I never knew you, away from me. So I would invite you not to judge the Christian faith based upon paedophile priests, but based upon Christ's teaching and Christ's person.
Yeah. So I agree with you to that, but what I'm trying to say is, it's as someone who walks into or say I don't know of the faith, and I walk into it, and these are the things that I see. You see what I mean? These are the things that are going to distract people from their faith.
Can I suggest to you that the reason why you see them is because that is the thing that the liberal media presents to you. The liberal media, let's be honest, when was the last time you sat down and watched the BBC and the liberal media, or any liberal media, and the liberal media started to do cover stories about the great charitable work of the Salvation Army, or the fact that the Catholic Church is the largest NGO in the entire world, or the fact that Christians have contributed to reconciling the tribal groups in Rwanda that slaughtered one another after the genocide, or the fact that Christians were advocates all the way through the Troubles in Northern Ireland for an end to violence, that the Pope spoke against the IRA and called on Catholics not to take up arms against Protestants, and that Protestant pastors were calling upon Protestants not to take up arms against Catholics, or the fact that the Christian Church has fought for justice, established the welfare state, like William Temple did. People who are confronted with these things that distract away from the Christian faith should first ask themselves, what is the agenda behind the maligning of the Christian community in the first place?
Yeah.
Why is it whenever you get a bishop on the BBC, the only topic of conversation is what do Christians think about homosexuality? Why is it never about any other topic?
But so what you're saying is to exercise critical thinking.
Yes.
And I'm exercising the same critical thinking about Christianity as I would with left liberal media. So it's the same. You can't tell me I can't be critical of Christianity.
No, I'm inviting you to be critical.
And this is what I'm trying to do.
I'm inviting you to be critical. And I'm inviting you to engage with the arguments and the evidence. Because I suggest to you, as a seeker, that there are very good reasons why you or anyone like you can become a Christian. But what I'm saying, but when you said that you find these things that you're encountering that are distracting you away from the Christian faith, and you use the example of paedophile priests. What I'm saying to you is the reason why you've got that category of mind, that you've got that perception, is because an anti-Christian media has given it to you, and you haven't yet freed yourself from the narrative that they've presented to you.
But then you could look at Christian media within America, you know, where they're, you know, putting their hands on people and they're warning off the demons, and, you know, taking the demons away from them. You know, seeing that is quite, you know, for me it's very questionable.
Right, bro. Again, firstly, I do believe in demon possession, and I do believe in exorcism. Okay. However, I don't believe in chucking pearls before swine. I don't believe that we should be televising that and also using it as some kind of form of Christian entertainment. I think that is terribly distasteful, and I also think that a lot of American televangelists are not genuine representatives of the Christian faith.
Yeah, but then they could say the same about you from a Christian perspective.
They can say whatever they like, but at the end of the day, you are then invited to ask who is standing upon historical Christianity.
Right.
And prosperity teaching, kind of power evangelism that you see on things like the Christian channel, are very poor reflectors of Christianity at a global level.
Okay, so the Pope is a poor reflector, the evangelicals
Where did I say the Pope was a poor reflector?
Oh, the Pope's clergy were. Essentially their doings shouldn't be
all of them?
No, well, I don't know. The only ones that are shown are the ones who are caught. The ones who are not caught, we don't know.
But notice the narrative that's going on in your mind is, yes, we've got paedophile priests that need to be dealt with.
Yeah.
But that's completely oblivious to the fact that there are many good priests doing much good work.
Absolutely.
But the thing that came to your mind.
No. This is so those elements. What you just said, there are good priests doing the work.
Yes.
That's in the good pot.
So should you?
So that's in the good pot for me.
Yeah.
Okay. So don't just hear. We're only going to speak about. I'm not here to speak about the things we agree on, isn't it? You know.
So let's cut past the good and the bad Christians and cut to what's really important.
Okay.
The teachings and the values of the Christian faith.
But then we have different denominations of Christianity.
All Christians agree that there is one God.
Okay.
All Christians agree that God is worshipped as Father, Son and Holy Spirit.
Okay.
All Christians agree that Christ was the divine Logos become flesh through the Virgin Mary. All Christians agree that he was crucified. All Christians agree that he was resurrected.
Right.
All Christians agree that the Holy Spirit is with his church today.
Yeah.
All Christians agree that Christ is returning. All Christians agree that there is a creator. So
what do they disagree on?
They disagree on secondary doctrine, like what is the politic of the church? What is the structure of the church? What is the highest authority within the church?
Yeah.
You know, whether the sacraments are a vehicle of grace or whether they are simply symbols of grace. You know.
And how do they see the Pope as well, for example?
Different Christians have different views of the Pope.
Yeah.
My point to you though is that as someone who's a genuine seeker, right, cut past all the crap that the liberal media puts in your way, pick up a Bible, read the claims.
I have it by my bedside.
Brilliant. So so look at the claims.
Every day I read the Bible.
Brilliant. Fantastic.
Until I will get to the end of it.
Right.
And this is what I'm trying to say to you. This is a person that is not, I'm not going to stand here and say, I picked out Matthew verse 12, chapter 30, and I'm going to dash that in your face because I don't believe that even means anything.
But what?
So for me, I want to read to the end, and I have read the Bible already, but I am now at a different stage of life.
Yeah.
So I want to re-go through it again.
Fantastic.
Yeah? And if God permits me to write notes in it, which I do, and to circle certain elements.
Well, come with those notes and let's talk about them.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I'm inviting you to do that, and I'm not. What I'm trying to point out is that there are narratives that I'm hearing from you that I hear from others.
Of course.
And I hear them from others because that is what society has taught them.
Yeah, I'm sure it has.
Now, what I'm suggesting to you, I've given you 2 reasons to believe in Christ's crucifixion. 2 reasons to believe in Christ's crucifixion. I'm only talking about the crucifixion. We've not even got onto the resurrection yet.
Yeah.
Reason number 1,
Yeah.
it's prophesized. And I've just shown you a prophecy in Isaiah. I'm going to show you another prophecy in the Psalms.
Yeah.
These were written by 2 different sources at 2 different times.
Yeah.
And they're both pointing to the fact of the Messiah being crucified. Then you have the Gospels, which you're fully aware, they acclaim that Christ was crucified. And then you have the historians that come after the New Testament who confirm that Christ was crucified. Bearing in mind that these prophecies could not have been fulfilled purely by Christ's own influence. It needed other people's cooperation. Other people needed to cooperate, which means that it wasn't in the power of Christ to manipulate the circumstance to get a result. So what we have are prophecies before the event, an account of the event, and confirmation of the event by other non-Christian sources outside of the New Testament.
And then historical after.
Yes.
Yeah.
That gives you good reason
Yeah.
to believe that Christ was crucified.
Absolutely.
Which
Yeah,
means, right, if you've got good reason to believe that Christ was crucified, you have good reason to not believe in anything that tells you different. And that is the difference between objective and subjective truth.
Yeah.
So do you believe that Christ was crucified?
Okay, so the information that you've gathered is something that you've gathered.
Yes.
Okay, so when I go through that myself, and to collaborate these historians,
Yeah.
these people that are who've grown into society with the lack of nurture, with the lack of love, the lack of care, inevitably turn into people that don't benefit society. Yeah, you see that all the time.
I couldn't disagree with you more.
Okay.
Because what that means is that we allow truth to be subject to political expediency. And you can't do that. If something is true, it is true. And if that truth is the source of a conflict, then so be it.
Fine.
But if you say that you're going to manipulate what you believe to be true simply and only to create social cohesion,
No, that's not what I
then
mean.
truth doesn't mean anything.
That's not what I mean.
So,
That's not what I mean.
when we have 2 truth claims that disagree with
Yeah.
one another, right?
Yeah.
There are going to be some people that are willing to fight for those truth claims, right? What are you going to do about that?
Well, it's as everyone does here. They discuss it and show their evidence and support their evidence, and not try to necessarily manipulate or to coerce someone into believing it. Is to, like you do, you know, like we show a piece of math. You know, when people come here and say, "Oh, flat Earth is," they don't understand physics.
Yeah, well,
So-
there's lots they don't understand.
This is what I'm trying
flat
to say.
Earth is a bonkers.
This is what I mean. So you have a lot of people that, but for me, maybe I'm wrong in believing that these people need some help.
Wait,
Yeah?
but hold on one second.
But not just to say, okay, these guys are lost, and that's it, leave them lost.
But that's not a Christian attitude anyway. So
I'm not saying it is.
whoever that applies to, it certainly doesn't apply to the Christians. Because Christians very much have as central to our narrative this idea of reaching out to the lost, reaching out to the people outside of the truth, and inviting them to see the truth for themselves. Because we believe that that truth will set them free. And we believe that truth is found in Christ.
Okay.
Now, what I am trying to give you and everyone else who's watching this is a way that you can measure truth claims. A way that you can measure truth claims and thus delineate truth from falsehood. If something is true, evidence will support it because it will correspond to reality. If something is false, evidence will contradict it because it will contradict reality.
Yeah.
Christ's crucifixion corresponds with every available evidence that we have.
Okay, so
Which means
Yeah, sorry.
that any narrative or any doctrine that says Christ was not crucified is contradicting the truth and is thus a lie or an error built on a lie.
but to just say, for example, as we find in a lot of research with different aspects of things. For example, they say that the Amazon is the lungs of the planet. Yeah? And that it gives us our breath. Do you believe this to be true?
No.
No.
I believe it gives us a lot of oxygen, but there's also a lot of oxygen that comes from plant inside the ocean. So
this is what I was going to say, is that for a long period of time we believed the Amazon was the lungs of the earth.
Yes.
But essentially what we've come to understand now is that the oxygen that the Amazon creates
is dwarfed by what comes out of the ocean.
It doesn't, no, it's not even dwarfed, it doesn't leave the Amazon because essentially it feeds whatever's the life, because you see how much life form is within the Amazon, yeah?
Yeah, but I mean,
so what I'm trying to say is that we, for a long time, believed that was the truth.
But now you're applying that to what my claims about the crucifixion. But the thing is,
not necessarily. I'm not applying that.
You're saying that in a response to you're saying that in a response to what I said about the crucifixion. And what I'm saying to you is that the claim about the crucifixion has stood up to 2,000 years of criticism. And the best time that anyone could have knocked down this idea, this belief, would have been right at the beginning. But no one ever tried to. No one ever tried to deny that Christ was crucified. They did try to deny the resurrection, but they didn't try to deny A, that his person existed, or B, that he was crucified.
And this resurrection, was it a physical resurrection?
We as Christians believe it was a physical resurrection.
So he died on the cross.
He died on a cross.
He woke up on the cross.
No, he didn't wake up on the cross.
Okay, so how can you explain to me the resurrection?
You've read the Gospels. Yes. You said you read the Bible. What does the Bible say?
Well, I don't remember that.
Fair enough. So what happened? Christ was crucified. His body was laid in a tomb, and then his tomb was discovered empty, and there were post-mortem experiences by his first followers where they claimed that they had seen him alive. And in their worldview, there was no possibility of this. There was no category of mind for this. Now let me explain what I mean by that. Say you're going down a motorway in the middle of the night and you see a light zooming across the sky, yeah? And then it stops and it disappears. One of the thoughts I imagine that will come into your head is it UFOs? Why? Because we've got this narrative permeating our society that we might have been visited by aliens. So we have a category of mind by which we can interpret an experience.
It's the same as a depiction of the devil. When you close your eyes, if you say to someone, what's the first thing that comes across in your mind when you say the devil, most people will have the depiction of the Renaissance.
Yeah, exactly.
Depiction of the red devil,
you know,
which is not
you got the red being with horns.
Yeah.
You say the devil, picture the devil, and that's what you get.
Yeah.
Because it's a category of mind by which you interpret experience.
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
Right. What I'm saying to you, as N.T. Wright observes, N.T. Wright is another first century historian. In first century Judaism, there was no category of mind for the idea that the Messiah would rise from the dead as an individual. There was no cultural expectation that this would happen. So when it happened, it exploded the categories of mind and created a new one. It creates a new narrative. Okay? Now, those first century Jews believed in a general resurrection, some of them, the Pharisees.
Yeah, the Pharisees.
But there were many Jews that didn't, like the Sadducees. Exactly. That's why they're sad, you see. Sorry, it's an old Christian joke. I use it every time, I'm sorry.
And the Pharisees are fair, you see.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So but the point is, when they had this experience of Christ rising from the dead, multiple, various, different experiences, both shared and individual, you, as a seeker, and I'm putting it to you as a question, are forced to ask the question, why? Now, I will entertain any hypothesis you wish to give, and I'll discuss it with you objectively, on the condition that you will seriously consider the hypothesis that it was a real experience rooted in a real event.
Yeah, I'm not, this is what I'm trying to say, it's not the question it's not always the question of why for me. Yeah, it's, you know, how I put together, not, you know, as you said, a seeker. I'm a seeker of truth. Yeah,
I get that.
And what I'm saying to you is, you know, what you said, I was someone that believes in the self and what have you. It's not necessarily that belief. It's the belief that, you know, like most of us share as children of this world. You know, when we go to sleep, we're alone, and we speak. We all have had this thing where we spoke to God.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we didn't get that answer. You know.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that is how we're meant to communicate with God, but you've got to understand that everyone has very similar experiences as human beings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then we go through all these points. So there are stages in my life that maybe it was never nurtured. This religious aspect was never nurtured.
Yeah, fair enough.
So
and a Christian school for sure is not necessarily the best place to have it nurtured.
Because
in fact,
you have a lot of
quite
children.
the opposite.
Quite the opposite. Yeah. So this is not, you know, for me, I'm against a lot of institutions, okay? Not because it's a liberal way of thinking, it's because I see how it's detrimental. You know, I see the effects of what it has, yeah? But what I'm saying is, in regards to, I'm not necessarily, you know, look, these things about the Christian church, I'm not happy about.
We're putting that to one side because we've already agreed that isn't the way to measure truth.
For sure. That's what I'm trying to say. So I'm about to agree with that point there, is that I'm not using that as I'm not going to get with church or get with Christianity because these popes do these bad things and they shouldn't be. I don't believe in that. I'm trying to seek the truth of what makes sense. Yeah,
I agree. This is a good way to approach things.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying to you, and we're just using the historical argument about the crucifixion, corresponding to the argument from prophecy. Now, just think for it, right? I just want to show you another prophecy. Okay. So this was the Psalms of David. The Psalms of David predate the prophecy we found in Isaiah in Isaiah 53. Okay, so this predates it, and what's really interesting is that Psalm 22 also predates the invention of crucifixion itself. Crucifixion was invented by the Persians. It was then mastered by the Romans.
And it wasn't always a cross like that. Sometimes they had two. That's why you have several depictions of different crosses.
But the Persian Empire invented crucifixion after this psalm. Okay. And if you read this in its entirety, and I invite you to read Psalm 22, and then I invite you to read the gospel passages about the crucifixion of Christ, and do that with Isaiah 53 and read the crucifixion in the gospels. Okay. Right? And I just want to zoom in on this bit, okay? Right? I am poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. When you're being crucified, you die through asphyxiation. You literally have to pull yourself up. Absolutely. Yeah. But when they're crucifying you, they have to stretch your arms.
Don't they have a little stand for your feet?
Sometimes they do.
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't. Depends how generous they wanted to be, the executioners. But sometimes they would have to pull your arms and legs to stretch them out before they nailed them in, and often that led to dislocation. Okay? Okay? My heart is waxed within me, it is melted within me. My strength is dried up like a potsherd. And obviously through the process of crucifixion you lose your strength. Yeah, the heart is under massive pressure. It starts to trifibrillate. Is trifibrillate the right word? Yeah, it starts to trifibrillate. Yeah, my strength is dried like a potsherd, and my tongue cleaves to my jaws because of all that deep breathing in the hot sun. Yeah, you end up with dry mouth, your tongue starts sticking to the top of your jaw. You lay me in the dust of death, for dogs have surrounded me, a band of evildoers have encompassed me. They pierced my hands and my feet. This is before crucifixion. This is before the Persians even invented crucifixion. David is writing around 1000 BC. Crucifixion was invented hundreds of years later. And they're talking about a man who is being crucified. His hands and his feet are being pierced.
And what do you think the Jews think that means?
It's a good one to talk to Jews about. Because it clearly, they would say that this is not a prophecy of the Messiah.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
But why? If that's so clear to you and so clear to I...
Exactly. But the thing you've got to remember is the people that wrote the Gospels were all Jews.
Yeah.
The first Christians were all Jews. So the argument from Jewishness, or what do the Jews say, is a ridiculous argument to use against the Christians, because the first Christians were all Jews. So we have the opinion of the Jews. That's what our entire religion is built upon, the opinion of Jews. So all it ends up is being an argument between this Jew and that Jew. So, you know, which Jew do you want to believe in? Peter or the Jews that today?
Well, it's not about that. It's the critical part of it. You know,
yes, it's the critical part.
I would like to know what they perceive that passage.
Well, there are Jews to talk to in the park.
Yeah,
but let's be clear. The argument from saying, well, what do the Jews think about this passage?
Yeah, no, it's not an argument.
Doesn't work for us.
No, it's not an argument.
But what I'm saying is, it does not work for us as Christians, because all our initial texts were written by Jews.
Yeah. Okay.
So it is simply a case of this Jew disagrees with that Jew. But the question is, which Jew was there at the time?
Yeah.
That's our Jews, just for the record.
And what about like the apocryphas and stuff like that? You know,
the apocryphal books.
Yes.
Like Esther,
yes.
And 1 Maccabees and 2 Maccabees. Thomas. Right. Yes. Okay.
Thomas is an important one for me because I find there's a lot of. I like the words in it. It really speaks to me, a lot of the words of Thomas.
The reason why we as Christians reject Thomas is because it wasn't known to the church. It emerged hundreds of years after the events. It comes around between the second. It comes around the 3rd century.
But then some people say that it was kept. It was almost like a secret that was kept, sort of thing.
Yeah, and they've got no historical reason for saying that.
Yeah.
It is just a modern myth.
But can you see how sometimes?
But what can you see that if a book comes in the 3rd century, so that's between the years 200 to 300.
But it does correlate with the time.
Really doesn't. It gets so much wrong. If I'm not mixing it up with something else, and I might be mixing it up with something else, it gives a description of the crucifixion or the resurrection, which talks about the cross coming out of the tomb and speaking.
No, that's not Thomas.
Or is that maybe that's the apocryphal? Maybe that's an apocryphal Peter.
Yeah.
But either way, the Gospel of Thomas is a Gnostic gospel that comes hundreds of years. It has been discounted by every historian of antiquity as being a relevant record to the life of Jesus. Bart Ehrman, when he wants to look at the life of Jesus, he goes to the Gospels and the letters of Paul. He doesn't go to the Gospel of Thomas.
No, I know that. Yeah.
The Church Fathers, Irenaeus, he quotes all 4 Gospels, but he never quotes the Gospel of Thomas. The Church Father Ignatius quotes all 4 Gospels, but he doesn't quote the Gospel of Thomas. Now, the very first generation of Christians, Ignatius, Irenaeus, Polycarp, all of these Church Fathers, they're quoting the Gospel that we have. They never quote the Gospel of Thomas. Why? Because it wasn't there to quote.
And what about the likes of Enoch, for example?
The Book of Enoch.
Okay, so I understand why the Book of Enoch was eradicated, even by the Jews too.
It wasn't eradicated.
Well, it was taken out. Is it not a part of the Apocrypha?
I believe that Ethiopian Christians, and I'm willing to be corrected if someone wants to correct me, but I believe that the Ethiopian Christians use the Book of Enoch.
Okay, but what does that mean?
Well, it means that some Christians accept it as well, they are connected to the Coptic Church, but it means that some Christians accept the Book of Enoch.
Okay, so what I'm trying to say
right, I might be wrong.
There's a Book of Enoch, right, which explains, but this is not in the Bible as such, yeah?
It's not in the Western European Church's Bible.
But then when I looked at Enoch himself, I thought, well, he sounds like quite an important figure.
He is an important figure.
In regards to, he was the only one to walk with God, was it?
No, there's many people in the Bible that have walked with God. Adam and Eve walked with God, though that's mythology. Yeah. Jacob wrestled with God. Abraham walked with God.
So why is it not?
The apostles walked with God. Loads of people in the Bible walk with God.
Yeah.
God's walking with people all the time. Do you know why? Because our God can enter into history. He can enter into time and space. He's not a limited God, like, say, for instance, the God of the Muslims, who's a God that can't do everything, but claims to be all-powerful. Our God is all-powerful and can enter into his creation.
Have you ever heard of that thing where they say if God is all-powerful, can he create a weight
that he can't lift?
That he can't lift.
Yeah, but such statements are nonsensical.
Why are they nonsensical?
Because they within the statement of the question is an irreconcilable contradiction.
Why? Explain.
Because if you're saying, can he create a weight that he can't lift, and is he all powerful?
Yeah.
What you've created is a rational contradiction between two positions that you can't rationalize and you can't reconcile.
Well, I know. For me, I sort of wrestled with this idea, because it sounded quite funny. You know, to me, it was kind of like, okay, that's.
I think it's wordplay.
It is kind of wordplay, but
it's what we call. I think it's called soliloquism or sophism, where it is just the use of language for its own sake. It doesn't actually say anything meaningful. What would be a meaningful statement? Would be, what is the impact of God entering into his creation? Because if your God can enter into creation, then he can communicate with you. If he can't enter into his creation, he can only send representatives. That means that when you've got a God that only can speak to you through representatives, you can never get to know God, only a description of God. But if God can enter into his own creation, you can get to know God. God can get to know you. That means that you can have a real relationship with God.
And can you have that same relationship without believing that Jesus is the Son of God?
I believe as a Christian that the only way to know the Father is through Jesus Christ.
Okay, but what you just said is that you can have a relationship with God, yeah?
Yes.
But can you have that same relationship, and how would you be able to measure it? You know, so if I was to say, for example, for argument's sake, I have a good relationship with God, or I have a relationship with God.
Yes.
And you say, well, I have also a relationship with
yes.
God. And then I say, but how are we ever going to test and measure
So that's a fair question. It's a very fair question. And let me say that I would be the first to say that people can have a relationship to God outside of the church.
Yeah. Because an Eskimo would never have seen.
Well, exactly, because we believe that God's Spirit is the one that converts people, which means that God is acting on people's hearts and minds even before they become Christian.
Yeah.
So you obviously can have a relationship with God before you become a Christian. And to what degree you can grasp the truth, and God is the fountain of all truth. He is the very paramount, the pyramid of truth. To what degree you engage with the truth, that objective truth, that real reality that underpins everything, then you can claim to have a relationship with God. But the true measure, the measuring stick of that relationship is how well do you know Jesus? Because Jesus is the perfect representation of the Father. When you see Jesus, you see in human form, you see what the Father looks like. And thus, for you to be closest to God, you have to be closest to Jesus.
And why do we, as a question from child, forgive the child for asking it.
No, there's no offence with the child.
Is that God is related to the Father of the sky. You know, he's the Father. Why is it a male? You know, some people, I've heard someone say, well, there's no other way. It's not going to be. You know.
Let me address that.
Can't we just ever say God again? Because when we're talking about language again, this is a matter of language.
And absolutely, and it is all connected to the sort of postmodern movements within our society and the deconstruction of language and so on and so forth. So when God was speaking, he was speaking to patriarchal society. He was speaking at one of the earliest stages of man, and so he uses language as appropriate to the time. However, Christians have zero authority to rewrite Jesus' teaching. Jesus addresses the Father as his Father. He shows God as his Father to Israel, as the Father of Israel, and so it is the only way as Christians that we can address God, and that's based upon whether you are willing to accept the authority of Christ.
Yeah, of course.
And if Christ rose from the dead, then his authority has the stamp of divine approval, which means his teachings has the stamp of divine approval, and we as Christians simply accept it and we are proud of it. We don't need to change our faith to fit with modern culture and modern concerns about egalitarianness of language. Okay? The Bible says mankind. That's how you translate adwama, mankind. But that doesn't mean that women are excluded.
Yeah, of course.
God is
It's like
Father.
a human woman.
Exactly, but Jesus says, this is Jesus speaking. He addresses God as Father, he calls us to address God as Father. We have no option to do otherwise. But he uses feminine descriptions at times in the scriptures. He said, "O Jerusalem, how I have wished to gather you like a hen under my wings." Now, does that mean that we have legitimacy now to call God Mother? No. But what it shows is that God is someone that transcends these masculine, feminine languages. And we shouldn't read that God has a gender.
So do you think, like, for someone, I spoke to a friend who was, and it makes kind of sense, is that God creates humans, God created all of us, right? And then there's all these religions. Is it a game? Is this a game? Is it, you know, like?
No, it's a war.
It's a war, yeah. So, but it's like, so.
It's a
God
war.
created a war, like game.
God did not. God did not create the war. The ones that created the war are the demons
That God created.
who prowl this earth seeking the ruin of souls, and the way that they seek the ruin of souls is to lie. And the best lies are always those that imitate the truth, and the devil has been getting better at lying down through the ages.
Absolutely.
And by far his best lie is the one that says he doesn't exist.
Yes, I know.
You know? So, bro, I'm gonna leave you, I want to give you a gift.
Oh,
now, you've got a Bible, so I'm not going to give you another Bible, but I just want to give you a gift.
Yeah.
Yeah, the basic elements of the Christian life, just for your edification.
Yes, sir.
Come and
Can
talk.
I come back for volume 2?
Absolutely, you can. I welcome it. You look after
It's a
yourself.
pleasure.
Yeah,
Speaking
keep
to you.
studying the Bible. Write
I
down
will
your
do.
questions, and then we'll talk some more.
Thank you very much.
God bless. Yeah, do you want to talk some more?
Yeah, just earlier on you mentioned something regarding the Christianity and the followers as Christians. Yeah. Just to tell you exactly what's happening, just for your information, I'm one of the oldest Christians possibly on earth. Yeah, I'm Assyrian, and I speak Aramaic, the language of Jesus.
Amazing.
Yeah. When I came to the West, I was shocked. My system. Sorry?
My dad speaks Aramaic.
Is he Assyrian?
He's partly Assyrian, yes.
Well, he's my brother, right? Look, when I saw the form of Christianity in London, in West, right, it was hard to swallow. The first time I was invited to one of the, I think it was evangelist churches, in Nigeria. Honestly, I was insulted because I woke up, I get up and sort of left the thing, and I said, I'm not here. I didn't come to a nightclub. Yeah, that was an insult to my, to my belief, to Christian belief, because what's happened.
What did you see?
Well, basically, like the music. I'm not, fully against all that, but in some of the churches, I've seen the devil deceiving people. If you give £50, you will have.
Yeah, this prosperity gospel is not the gospel.
Not accepted.
That is not the gospel.
That is not the
prosperity gospel is not the gospel.
No, that was a thing that I used to question as a child as well.
Brother, I'm going to go. I'm going to let you guys chat. Peace be with you. Christ is risen. It's a real pleasure talking to you.
Pleasure to you.
We'll talk some more.
Thanks, sir.
Come back for volume 2.
I will do.
Have a good day.
I may come with some more challenges.
Yeah, bring your questions, read the Bible, right? Bring us your Bible with all your notes, and we'll talk about it.
Don't lose my telephone.
So, what we've got, guys, is the fact that as Christians, we have allowed the media to throw obstacles in front of people's faces. We need to cut past all the crap about these Christians have done that and these Christians have done that, and bring people back to looking at Jesus and the claims about Jesus himself. If Christ is prophesied in the Old Testament, and those prophecies are fulfilled in the person of Christ as evidenced by the New Testament gospel writing, and then independently by non-Christians, those same claims are verified by historians, people have a good reason, a good benchmark to understand what is a truth claim. Truth claims are not subjective things. There are some truth claims that are subjective. I may like a cheeseburger, you may not like a cheeseburger. Those claims are true, but they are subjective. It's a matter of taste. But things to do with history are subject to inquiry, and those historical inquiries can give us a measure of knowing the truth. The Christian faith makes truth claims about Jesus that corresponds with history. It corresponds with prophecy, and any truth claim about Jesus that contradicts both the prophecy and the history is a truth claim that is evidently false. And we Christians need to re-galvanize ourselves to stand confidently in our truth. Because people like this brother are walking away from the Christian faith for reasons of poor discipleship, because of the fact that a Christian identity is not being imbued within his heart, is not being cultivated within his inner man. And it is simply being reduced to a series of claims that get knocked down very quickly by the secular world, because we're not teaching our children how to defend that worldview, how to defend that identity. So wake up, brothers and sisters. Wake up, because the church in the West is in full retreat, and it will continue to do so until we change the culture within the church.